The ugly truth about banishment. In the aftermath of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, Dumisa, Ntsebeza and Terry Bell complained that, like so much of South Africa's recent brutal history, we shall probably never know exactly how many people were banished and what happened to all of them. Now a new book, The Forgotten People, Political Banishment Under Apartheid by Rhodes University Vice-Chancellor Saleem Badat answers many questions about banishment and a known aspect of our indeed brutal history. In the closing years of apartheid rule, key political opponents of apartheid like Matthews Goniwe, Griffiths and Victoria Mxenge, Gqabi, Dulcie September and others were singled out for assassination, sometimes to have their bodies burnt while their killers swilled beer and roasted meat alongside the makeshift funeral. In the early years of apartheid, political opponents from rural areas were condemned to the living hell of banishment, an administrative weapon used to expel them to distant and often arid and desolate places for unlimited periods. Banishment was used to punish, intimidate and control political opponents, part of a wider political strategy for suppressing opposition to state policies and maintaining apartheid rule. In the anti-apartheid fighter Helen Joseph's words, apartheid's opponents were plucked from their families and communities and cast to the most abandoned parts of the country, there to live, perhaps to die, to suffer and starve, or to stretch out a survival by poorly paid labor, if and when they could get it. In 1960, 160 people were banished between 1948 and 1986. 150 were men, 10 were women. 110 people were banished within the first decade of apartheid alone, and a vast majority by 1965. 140 people were banished from rural areas. 78 of them were banished from just several rural places in the 1950s and early 1960s. Mabieskral, Vitsisuk, and Kamatlala, Bahurute, Sekukuneland, Tembuland, and Pondoland. Common to those areas was widespread popular resistance to new apartheid politics and measures. Betterment schemes that affected land and livestock possessions and use, a new system of administration, Bantu authorities, and the creation of Bantustans, and the introduction of Bantu education and passes for women. Banishment was not devised by Afrikaner nationalists who came to power in 1948. The law that allowed banishment came from the colonial period in Natal, presided over the Imperial British. In 1927, it became national law, Section 5.1b of the Native Administration Act. Some who were banished, as Helen Joseph wrote, had no trial in court. They were neither charged nor told of the nature of their crimes. They were given no opportunities to defend themselves, yet they were deprived of their liberty, of their homes. They were banished within the law, but outside justice. The banished were people who broke no law and who possessed no hidden information, but whose very presence presented a problem. Often these were community leaders or elected chiefs in the rural areas who did not accept without question government edicts. Leaders who were perceived as insubordinate, cheeky, by one or other authority figure. For the state, it was a more efficient piece of legislation. It did away with the time-consuming necessary of judicial procedures and allowed the authorities to decide on the appropriate place to which to send each individual and do it quickly. Those banished were located across the length and breadth of South Africa in mainly far-flung rural areas. 52 people were banished to the Vryburg, Mafikeng and Kuruman district for the Northern Cape. 22 people were banished to the Sibasa and Pietersburg district in the Northern Transvaal, and 11 to the King Williamstown district. The place of banishment included 2 inhospitable camps on native trust farms at the Driefontein and Frenchdale in the North Cape Gulags to 26 people and 14 people respectively. On average, banishment orders were in force for 9 years. 110 people were banished for more than 5 years, 11 were banished for more than 15 years, and 3 for more than 20 years. Some of those several banishment orders did not go into banishment but escaped into exile before or while banished. The trade union and political leader Elizabeth Mafeking from Paarl and Gilbert Hani, father of Chris Hani, and Jacob Mpemba from Cape Town fled into exile some after they were served banishment orders. Rural militants like Ben Batman from Worcester, Anderson Ganyele from Bizana and Jackson Koisane from Umtata journeyed into exile from their places of banishment. Banishment was feared by ordinary men and women. A teacher in Sekuneland recalled that another word that caused fear was St. Helena. Reflex of the island to which the Zulu was banished after the 1906 Zulu Rebellion. A color residence about banishment that was a punishment house days. The harshness of banishment forced some to agree to various restrictions and secure their release. Other bore banishment with great courage, refusing to collaborate or compromise with the apartheid state. In the Tugela Valley, Kenneth Musenyi from Bahurushe looked on this banishment as an honor in the struggle of our people. He refused and requested a release from banishment, saying, "I did not bring myself here. If he feels like it, let the native commissioner send me home. It is not for me to go on my knees to ask for a favor." Maema Matlala took part in World War I in East Africa. Banished to Bushbuck Ridge, he resisted all efforts by state officials to win him over, determined that when I go home, I shall be accepted by the people. The first urban people banished were Alcott Kwenche and Joel Lengisi from East London. Kwenche helped to establish the ANC Youth League in East London. A powerful and charismatic leader, orphaned as a result of the Bahog massacre, his ability to mobilize people made East London a powerful center of protest during the 1952 defense campaign. Kwenche became the chairperson of the ANC in East London and also the president of the Cape ANCYL. He was a versatile man and the leader of the Hot Shots musical band. In 1954, he was banished from Duncan Village to Pilgrim's Rest in the Eastern Transvaal. A year later, he was banished to Frenchdale because it was alleged he was being visited by ANC members in secret and that there were plans afoot for him to abscond. In 1956, he was arrested in Mafeking for disobeying the order to remain at French jail, but released on bail of £25. Represented by Joel Slovo, he was found not guilty of contravening his banishment order. Gwenche was released from banishment in 1960 to Tomo, his hometown in Transkei. As we read, the British revised banishment. They also used it to deal with their unruly colonial subjects in order to places such as West Africa, East Africa, and India. The Dutch also practiced banishment. Political opponents from its colonies in the East were banished to various places, including South Africa. Already from the late 1600s, banished people from Indonesia and elsewhere were being sent to the Cape. The best known of those banished from Java is Sheikh Yusuf. A scholar of renown is the 17th century Indian Ocean Islamic networks. He was revered as an national hero exiled for his beliefs and struggle against the Dutch. Sheikh Yusuf was initially banished to Batavia and Colombo in 1684. Banished to the Cape in 1694, he died there in 1699. There is a kramat in his honor near Makassar. Tuan Guru was also a banished person who was held on Robben Island during the 1780s before his release in 1792. He established the Dope Street Madarasa in 1793 and the first mosque in 1795. The first person to be banished within South Africa was Oudtshoorn Harry the Hottentot after he fell out with the Dutch. In 1958, Oudtshoorn and two companions, Joko and Bobo, were placed on Robben Island. He escaped from the Robben Island on a small boat in 1659. Others were banished during the British wars of colonial dispossession and conquest. David Stoneman, who was involved in the Third Frontier War and was a thorn in the side of the British for some years, was banished in 1819. Makanda was banished to Robben Island and drowned in 1820 trying to escape. Following the battle in Ulundi, the Zulu king Cetshwayo was captured by the British in 1879 and banished to Cape Town. Initially, Cetshwayo was held at the castle. He made various pleas for the clemency to Queen Victoria and also traveled to Britain to put his case. Subsequently, he was moved to Aldermolen, a farm off the Cape Flats. He returned home from banishment in 1883. In 1888, King Dinuzulu sought to resist British undermining of the Usutu. He and two uncles were banished to the island of St. Helena, where they remained for some 5 years. In 1910, Dinuzulu was again banished for the rest of his life from Zululand and Natal to the farm near Middelburg, Transvaal. Following his banishment, his home in Zululand was plowed down and destroyed to prove his still hopeful followers that he would never return. He died in 1913, according to his companion Makulumana of a broken heart. This article was published on Daily Dispatch. And that's it from INJIBS Network. Stay tuned to our celebrity and gossip news.